So I wanted to watch a movie this week, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to watch. I didn't really have any specific genre or any specific movie I wanted to watch. So I was out in my library, and I just happened to pull out a movie that I thought the title was intriguing, called Lord of War. And I was like, I'll read it and see what it's about. I didn't even get a chance to read it before I checked it out because I pulled it out and Nicolas Cage was on the cover. I freaking love Nicolas Cage, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting this movie regardless of what it's about because I love me some Nick Cage. And Nick Cage is all over this movie because he is the main character of this movie. This movie came out in 2005, at least according to the date on the back of the case. And why I specifically mention that is because in the intro there is a animated montage type thing where you are in the perspective of a bullet going from the factory to being shot. And it's actually really cool. However, the animation looks so early 2000s. Like, and I'm not just saying that like, oh, that is so early 2000s. No, you can tell it's early 2000s just based on the cartoony, very computer-generated models that they chose. And it, you know, the scene works pretty well because it's blended with live-action footage and, you know, the computer-generated footage, and it works pretty well when it's the blend of CG in real life. However, when it's just the CG, it's painfully obvious what you're looking at. You know, and that's not the fault of the filmmakers at the time. Maybe it is. Maybe they could have spent more money on it and made it look a little bit better. But, you know, by today's standards, it doesn't really hold up. But don't let that ruin the movie for you, because I actually quite enjoyed this movie. The general story of this movie is that Nicolas Cage decides that he's going to become an arms dealer because he realizes that there are profits to be had in said business. So he familiarizes himself a little bit, and he has the general knack of a salesman when it comes to this sort of thing. So him and his brother decide they're going to go into business together and they're going to sell arms. Illegally, of course, obviously. This movie doesn't really happen in one specific time. It starts in the 80s and we end in the early 2000s. 2001 or 2, I can't remember. So it's the story of Nicolas Cage's character going from, you know, smaller arms deals to massive arms deals, and really it's not about that either. That aspect is pretty quick in the movie. He goes pretty quick from selling small arms to massive arms in mass quantities, which isn't a bad thing about the movie, because the movie isn't about him being an arms dealer. It's not even about his family. It's about a lot of different things. In the same way that it's not about him being an arms dealer, or not really about him and his brother or his family. It is about that in the same way, but it's not. That's not the main pole of the movie. That's not the focus point of the movie. The focus point is watching this character. There's not even like a normal story structure. You could start at any point in this movie and grasp onto what's going on pretty quickly. The movie ends in such a way that it could also be the beginning of another movie. I don't think they were planning on ever making a sequel, but they left it very open-ended. It's a very open-ended movie. Now, these aren't flaws about the movie. I actually quite enjoyed those aspects of it because it's different. It doesn't feel stale or bogged down by other types of filmmaking and other types of movies. It said, this is what I'm gonna tell and this is how I'm gonna do it. Nicolas Cage is narrating through the whole time about different aspects that happens in this story. You know, it starts with him explaining how he became a small-time arms dealer and how he eventually became big-time. It talks about the woman he wants to marry, the woman he falls in love with. There's a lot of Nicolas Cage in this movie. Now, a lot of people don't like Nicolas Cage, and I can understand why. He's not everyone's cup of tea. Now, what I like about Nicolas Cage is I love it when he gets all cagey and he freaks out and he does like the big bug eyes thing and he makes noises and stuff like that. There was only like 1 or 2 times in this movie that actually happened, and it's very subdued compared to what you would define as Nicolas Cage moments. It's definitely not like Ghost Rider. He's much more serious in this movie. It's a much more dramatic portrayal of the character he's portraying. It's not over the top. It's not what you would think a typical Nicolas Cage character would be. He's actually not even crazy at all. He's not wild. And this character could have been an over-the-top, wild character, and Nicolas Cage would have been perfect at that too. But he does such a good job not doing that, being restrained. Like, this character shows great restraint in not losing it. There are a couple times when you think, oh, he's gonna lose it, and that's the end of the story. No, he pulls it back. He's very good at portraying the inner struggles of the character visually without actually having to say anything. Now, he does say things in the movie because he's narrating it, but the woman he falls in love with is a model, and he fakes being this rich businessman to get her attention. He buys out the hotel, and he rents a private jet, and she falls for him or whatever, and the entire time it's a facade. He doesn't tell her what he's doing or what his actual line of business is. And on their wedding day, it becomes very clear that she doesn't want to know what he does. Like, she knows that something is, she knows that he's not necessarily on the level, and she doesn't really care as long as she doesn't know. She knows it's probably against the law, and she just doesn't want to know about it. Which I thought was a great aspect, where she's clearly this normal type person. I mean, she's a model, so not normal, but she's mentally like a normal, grounded human being, and she can clearly see the man she's marrying is not necessarily all he seems to be, and she's okay with that. I really like that. However, by the end of the movie, they portray it as if she didn't know the whole time that he was doing something wrong or something illegal in any type of way. Except she did, because she made it very clear that she knew that he wasn't on the level. So when it's revealed to her what he's doing, it didn't seem like the strongest aspect to the story. It would have made more sense if he was lying to her the whole time and she didn't pretend to know something or anything at all. Because she clearly states near the beginning of the movie that she's okay with him doing the things he does. But by the end, she's all mad and calls the police on him, basically. So I didn't necessarily like that part of the movie, and that was really the only, like, major problem that I really had with this movie. I really liked the movie because with the character you go through his entire story arc, where he begins and where he ends. Or not, really. So he starts small, gets bigger and bigger, as I said before, but it's his character and the things he does that are different. During the movie, he's being chased by Interpol the whole time, basically, and there's this one specific agent who's after him. You know, kind of a basic story element, but whatever. And so his wife gets freaked out by all the agents, you know, asking questions and looking around. And then she finds out that he's an arms dealer. And she's like, look, stop. And he decides, okay, I'm gonna go legit. So he goes legit for a while, and the business is not as good. And then a warlord comes, who he's had dealings with earlier in the movie, says, I'm looking to do more business. He's like, I'm out of that. And then he gives him more money, and he's like, okay. See, it's basically Nicolas Cage's character tried to go against what he knew how to do. He tried to fit in and blend in, but he says that he can't. You can't fight your DNA. You can't fight your nature. You can't fight if you're going to be born with blue eyes or brown eyes. I mean, there's a statistical likelihood that you're going to be born with one or the other, but once they're born, you can't change that. Unless you really want to, and then you can, but don't beat that guy. So they go in, and his brother is getting over a cocaine addiction, and he's out, and he's totally straight now, and and Nicolas Cage goes to his brother and is like, hey, I'm gonna do this, I would like you to come. So his brother says, no, no, no. They eventually both go, as you know what's gonna happen. But what happens is that they're doing the deal with these warlords, and his brother sees a camp down at the end of the valley, and he realizes that they're going to kill everybody once they finish the deal. That's what the deal is for. And he's not okay with that, so he's freaking out, and Nicolas Cage is like, look, if we don't do it, someone else is gonna do it. They're gonna die. If we do it, they're gonna die. If we don't do it, we're gonna die. He's like, okay, whatever. But he sabotages the deal and his brother dies. And Nicolas Cage is starting to realize that, you know, he's losing everything. His world is unraveling at the seams. So he's like, what am I gonna do? And he decides he's gonna pay off a doctor to remove the bullets and go back to the US, and he's gonna fake a death certificate. But the doctor didn't remove one of the bullets, and it gets caught by, I guess, the TSA, and he gets arrested because of it. So he's like, oh, what am I gonna do? I guess I'm gonna go to jail. Not, because you don't get. He's like, you can't take me down for a faked death certificate. And the agent's like, right, I can't. But come to find out that Nicolas Cage's wife had discovered his entire cache of weapons and turned him in, because she thought he had been going legit, but she didn't really trust him the whole time, and it was found. And so Nicolas Cage's wife and son are gone. His parents have disowned him because he basically killed his brother, and he's an arms dealer, and they're probably not fans of that, I'm assuming. Whatever. So the agent's like, you're going to jail for multiple life sentences, and Nicolas Cage is like, no, I'm not. And then he goes and works for the United States as a secret US arms dealer, basically. And I thought that spoke pretty well of, you know, the wealthy and the illegal. If you have money, chances are you're gonna get away with it. If you have a special skill that, you know, other people can't know you have, you're gonna get tapped for that, essentially, and that's what happens to Nicolas Cage by the end of the movie. So he goes from top of the world to straight hell, but he gets back up and he's selling arms again, except because it's good for government. This movie gets 7 out of 10 Nicolas Cages.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
I really like this movie. I think if you're into Nicolas Cage, you'll like this movie. I think if you're just into good movies in general, you'll like it.